We're going to there.
Okay. I'm sorry. I've never done a book club before, Brandy.
We're getting to that part. I know
you're like, shut up, Katie. I know you have a lot to say. Just shut up. Let me do my work. Life as a mom, entrepreneur, wife, friend, and human is a lot. Join me, Katie Jacobs.
And me, Brandy Chandler, every Thursday as we have unfiltered, hilarious, and relatable conversations about the ups, the downs, and the chaos of it all.
Pour a glass and pull up a seat.
Because you're always welcome at our table.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Brandy.
You're my book baddie today.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Book baddie.
This is gonna be, this is why you want to start the podcast.
I know. I'm so
today is your day.
I'm so excited. I'm like a giddy. It's like the first day of school.
You're glowing. You have pages of notes.
There was a lot in this book.
Don't I know it?
And so, how do we cover it all without having a 3-hour episode? Because we get distracted.
Don't they know it?
All right, let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
We got a lot to do. Spoiler alert, we will be talking about this book in full.
Yes.
All
if
the
you haven't read it, read it, and then come back to this episode.
Yes. Or if you don't want to read it, this will still be a good conversation. Like if you're not interested in the book part, you can still listen. You're going to get some stuff out of this.
Truly.
But if you're in the middle of it or you want to read it without having everything spoiled, wait until you read it. Okay. I loved this book, and we might be on the same page here because of the secret lives of women aspect of it. Mm-hmm. We got behind the curtain. We knew how they felt. We knew how they were perceived by others. It was just a great picture. Mm-hmm. And then that also gave us a lot of empathy for the characters that we did not identify with. We learned things about their situations. And I love that. I love that part of reading.
Yeah, I yes to all of that, but my take, and I think I texted you this at one point when I was reading it, was that I think every mother can identify with each one of these characters a little.
Yes.
They all felt like a caricature of different parts of being a mother, whether it's the really kind, thoughtful, intuitive parent, or the parent who loses their cool, or the parent who works too much, or the parent who, is goes from not wanting to be a parent to being a parent all of a sudden and wanting it more than anything in the world, to a parent who is wiser than me, who has seen so much and is observing the world through a different lens of having that experience. I think it's just, you could pick a little from each character.
Yes. And even more than parenting, just as being women, there were so many things going on. These women talked about their upbringing and their mothers. They talked about their relationships with their spouses, and yeah, I could see myself in all of those.
I liked how 3-dimensional they all were, that oftentimes, and we talked about this in friendship, you'll meet someone and they give you 1 dimension.
Yes.
Or they'll give you 2 dimensions. You can never really get the deep dive on some people. Yeah. And I loved that this was sort of, you get the deep dive even in the relationship between Blair, oh my God, goldfish memory, Blair and Whitney and their relationship. You can tell they've only given each other a little, they've never really done deep dive.
Yes, they've seen glimmers, but they don't know for sure.
And they've never wanted to tread a little deeper into that.
Yeah. And I also like the overall emphasizing of the fact that we see in this book that we never know, like what you're saying, we never know the full story. Even with people we are deep with, there are parts that they hide, and you never know the full story. And on a certain page, the oldest character in the book, Mara, says, people are rarely who they seem, but sometimes it's the good ones who do the very worst things. Whew. And I was like,
I just got a little chill down my spine.
This is true. Thank you, Mara.
Yes.
Okay, before we get into the details, did you read the epigraph of the book and the dedication?
Yeah, I always read everything.
Well, so many people don't, but
I
there's
love
so
that.
much good info in there.
It's so telling.
It is. I mean, sometimes you don't understand it until
Yes.
after you read the book.
That has happened to me. So I often will read the book and then go back to it. It's like,
yes, you have to do
Oh,
that. You're
okay.
so smart. Okay. So the dedication reads, you're the smartest. The dedication reads, for every mom hanging on by a thread and for those desperately trying to be one.
oh, yeah.
I'm like, so she's our people. This
She
author,
is.
Ashley Audrain.
Bad mommy. We need
It's
to
like
get
she
her
wrote
on
this
the
book
pod.
for us. And then the epigraph reads, what I increasingly felt in marriage and in motherhood was that to live as a woman and to live as a feminist were two different and possibly irreconcilable things. And that was a quote from Rachel Cusk in an interview she did. And she's also a novelist. So I thought that was a very interesting epigraph to start this with. But yeah, there's so much knowledge in that. And also the author's note at the end of the book. I love reading those.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they like list off other authors that are like their
Yes.
writing buddies. And I
Yes.
love those connections because a lot of times they're my favorite authors too.
Of course.
So always read that. All right. You ready to get into this bad boy?
I'm
No.
ready.
You got something to say?
I always have a lot to say.
I know.
I'm full
There's
of shit.
so much. There's so much with this book. We could go off.
I know.
The wall.
I'm like, Katie, hold back because she has pages of notes. So like, let's just pace ourselves. Pace ourselves here. I have a lot to say about all of that, but
okay.
let's
So
jump
it
in.
starts with this random, not even a title to the chapter, but like 2 pages, and it's a man's perspective,
which
And
we forgot.
I totally
Both of us.
forgot. And it took me reading the book twice and reading these pages 3 times to figure out who the man was. I was really slow to that. I don't know.
Really? I think you
I
read
was.
too much and then you just forget what's going on.
Yes. I mean, I read this book the second time and I still wasn't sure who the cheating husband was. The second time. I was caught up.
It will, and it is that kind of story.
Yeah. So anyway, those 2 pages are so good to go back and read because it is the man's perspective. And now that you know the whole story, you know the exact scene he is reliving.
Absolutely.
Which is when the son that had the accident caught them in the middle of their affair.
Right.
So that's interesting. And then it jumps to a September chapter, which is 9 months prior to the main action. And the opening line, we've already read this in some social media,
Yes.
was so hooking.
Oh, the hook.
I mean, you read that line and how can you not?
Mariah Carey can't hook like that. It was.
You read
Good.
that line and I mean, I read this book a second time and it was like, I enjoyed it as much as the first. It was so good.
Yeah, I text you after the first 2 chapters. I was like, this is
It was
epic.
so good.
It's so the first chapter is this dinner party
Yes.
at the nicest home on the street.
And it's the people watching vibe, which I love. And it's
Yes.
just like, here you go. Get ready.
It's like, okay, what's everyone's dynamic? My favorite part of any social setting where there's a lot of different people there is sitting down. My husband, I'm like, I need to leave early so that I can sit down with my husband, or the next day have a call with my girlfriends and be like, okay, who were all these players? What was the dynamic there? Like, I'm not interested. I don't care like who's there with who. I don't care if I don't care. Live your life. Doesn't fucking matter to me. But I want to break down like the why,
yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
and this, and then did you hear that? Did you see that? It's
Why
like
did
fun.
he front hug her and not side hug her?
Ooh.
Like all those things.
Yes.
I just love people
And
watching
this
too.
book is full. If you did you notice when you read it of the little moments, the
Mhm.
little almost imperceivable moments that happen socially that you might miss, like a hand at the low back, or it's like that's an intimate, touch. Or
they're
yes,
tells.
they're tells.
Yeah, they're great.
Mhm.
Ooh. Yeah. So you're set up from the beginning. You know you're going to have some good people watching.
Brandy, did you see we did that at the same time? We did a little shimmy shake for
I
those of
couldn't
you
do
listening.
it again to save my
Ooh.
life. It was natural reaction. So we know that right off the bat. And then Mara has a line where it kind of sets up her character. So Mara is the older neighbor, and she is literally sitting on her porch, people watching.
That's her life.
Just watching these young people. And she says she knows the neighbors don't really want people like her and Albert there. They think she's got nothing to offer anymore. Her decades of wisdom don't matter in the least to those women who march around like they've got it all figured out. And she's so right.
She is so right.
But we love the wiser than me setup. What are they missing from not paying attention to her?
I think this is a narrative on women. So Mara is, I think, if you think about the way women treat women, and I've been thinking about this a lot because of my husband's political campaign and sort of the way women have treated my family. And it's really made me sort of rethink things. And I believe there's a weird sort of program that was installed in us to push back against other women when they seem to be in competition, whether that's perceived competition or very real competition for whatever it might be, success or being the best mother or having a great marriage or being able to vacation or have nice things or whatever. So I think there's that. But then I think there was also for so long, and I'm happy to say I think the tide is changing, and that I believe women over 50 were discarded in the past.
Yes.
And I think that that's really sad. And I think that the shelf life of femininity and beauty was very manufactured for marketing purposes, and everyone bought that. And maybe this is only in Western culture. I can't speak for other cultures because I don't know that's true for other cultures. But in Western culture, the discarding of women who have experienced so much, and then we'll go off into the sunset because we're looking at these new beauties, I think is really detrimental to us, as we've talked about, being able to support each other, because the wiser than me is so important. These are the women who can help you, skip 3 problems, or get ahead if you listen and you are. When you see Mara sitting on the porch having her coffee, maybe you go sit with her.
Yeah. And I think very few of them even knew she had a son, so they didn't deep dive.
I don't think that's an interesting part of the book. I think it's only alluded to one time that she had a son, that one of the women has an understanding that she has a son.
Yeah. Good deal. And then immediately after there's a comment I believe Blair made about Rebecca and Ben. Am I saying their names right?
Yeah.
Yes. Where she calls Rebecca and Ben, they are the childless, child-free. They are childless, child-free, and so they have not yet been irrevocably changed, not like the rest of them. So at first I was like, wow, that's a really good way to put how crazily you are changed as a person when you have kids. But after I read the book a second time, I was like, that is such an interesting phrase to describe them, because they are two with a lot of drama too. So they are changed even though they don't have kids.
And tremendous struggles.
Yeah, because Ben is the cheater and Rebecca wants to have a child so badly.
And she's going through these
So those are interesting. And that's all in the setup chapter. So we haven't even started chapter 1 yet, but it's going to go fast now. So chapter 1 on page 15, we kind of get where our title comes from, The Whispers. Blair is just chronically the whole book convinced her husband is having an affair. And she also has a lot of dissatisfaction with her life at this point, which we have an upcoming episode that is going to be discussing this topic, kind of like a 7-year itch, restlessness, like something needs to change.
This is publishing after that, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's funny how all these are tying together. I love it.
I do love that there
Yeah.
is a thread from week 1
Yeah.
to this week.
It just keeps going. So Blair, I'm going to read what she says. This is where I most feel the title comes from, but then I've picked up some other places as well. So Blair says, but more than any proof she has is a feeling. She'd once heard them described as the whispers, the moments that are trying to tell you something isn't right here. The problem is that the same women aren't listening to what their lives are trying to tell them. They don't hear the whispers until they're looking back with hindsight, feeling blindsided, desperate to see the truth for what it is. So, yeah, that's so true. So many times I've had stuff happen and be like, should have listened to my gut. I can see this coming.
Yeah.
So that's good.
I'm afraid to talk.
Don't you talk whatever you want now. I'll tell you if we have an upcoming.
Tap me when I can.
Tap. Go. So is that where, did you feel like that was the title, like where it all was kind of being laid out?
Yes, I did. I also thought all of the nuance of the relationships and all of the ways that they tied together were a bit of that. But intuition plays into that too. Yes, I did. I like the way she laid that out, that your intuition as a whisper.
Yeah.
And I could look back. I was looking back actually early this morning. I was writing some emails and someone was asking me about a certain point in time with my business. And I was like, oh my God, I made like such a bad decision that year.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about like, had I listened to my intuition, it was like so strong. And I just was like, now I'm better. And I think, when we talk in rear view about that, it's like the whispers that you don't listen to. I say that one of the few, I don't like to give advice to moms because they're already inundated. But one of the few things I'll say is, I wish I had listened to my intuition with my first son the way I listened to it with my third.
Yes.
Because I just didn't trust. And nature gives you many of the tools that you need, and your body knows how to heal itself. And if I had listened to more of that, I think I would have had a much easier first time.
Yeah. I think these women could probably say the same.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it was interesting. I later picked up on, so this is called The Whispers, and I originally thought it came from this quote from Blair, but Marcus, Mara's son that passed away, he always whispered to her.
Yes.
And that was such a special thing that she cherished. So we've got the whispers there.
Yeah.
And then we have when Whitney discovers she's pregnant, like she just knows, which we're going to cover that more in a minute. And Rebecca knows when something had changed with Ben. And he tried to blame it on her, but she knew it was not her.
I don't think I've ever been cheated on, but that has to be something that many women could probably relate to.
Yes.
The gaslighting of like, no, I've had friends, I can speak to that, who have been like, something changed. And then it was like, no, this is your fault. You're doing things wrong. And then they realize what's really going on. And they're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That was really your guilt.
That's one of my upcoming topics. It's further in the book, but when Blair confronts Aiden about if he is having an affair. So Blair is the one that's just completely unsettled with her life right now and unsatisfied. And she's just so sure Aiden is having an affair on her, and she confronts him about it. So I don't think I've ever been cheated on either.
There have
been 2 or 3 distinct times where I convinced myself.
Yes.
I'm like, I think he is. I mean, like, I would even ask my friends, do you think Josh is cheating on me with so-and-so? And they were like, are you insane? But you can get in your head so much. Yeah. And so has that happened to you?
Oh my gosh. My husband played professional baseball. Like, I would be living in a different city. And when you play baseball, you get to the field at like 10, work all day, have a game at night. Well, what's open at 10:30 when you leave the field? Where do you go get dinner? Can you answer that?
No.
You go to a bar.
I thought you were going to say a strip club.
Have some steak with your eggs. I don't know. It's like, no. So he would call me after games, and I would be asleep, and I would answer when I was working post-grad. And all I would hear was like women, because of course all the guys go out together,
and you're
just here like, And you're just like, I'm going to kill somebody. I'm going to fly up there. I'm going to open a can of whoop ass in this bar. No, I mean, there's nothing you can do, and you really have to trust. And we built a ton of trust that way because he's a good guy. And I don't like, he just doesn't. It's just not who he is. He was raised
face it, they have their hands full with us.
I know. He needs another problematic woman. But I will say there were times where there were women who were like, very, I can think of one, and I don't want to give all the references away, but I can think of one where I was like, I was telling him, I was like, this woman that he was working with her in the off season. I was like, she wants you. Like, it's annoying. Like I would
they
go
don't
in,
pick up on it sometimes.
No, like the couple times I went into the office to like, you know, bring him lunch or something, it was like she was like showboating.
Yeah.
And she was real cute. And I was just like, oh my God, this girl, I want to kick her ass. But no, I've definitely thought that. I think every woman, maybe in a moment of insecurity, has felt.
I feel like it normally.
Or when you're struggling in your relationship and you feel like the other person is pulling back a little bit.
Or even when something else in your life is off balance. It's an easy kind of scapegoat to put your frustration.
That's a good way of
thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think many people, not just women, I think many folks could relate to that, to having that insecurity.
For sure.
And having it be misplaced. Hopefully.
We hope it is not true for everyone. Hi, friends. This episode was brought to you by Periander Studio. Nestled in the lively streets of Athens, Periander Studio is your go-to spot for all things floral and home decor magic. Run by a dynamic mother-daughter dream team wielding years of expertise in all things blooms and interiors. From crafting bespoke creations for every milestone to snagging a last-minute gift, these creative wizards have got your back for all occasions. Swing by their shop to feast your eyes on vibrant blooms, green beauties, and a hand-picked array of home treasures and gifts. They even offer flower deliveries and subscription services for those in and around Athens. Periander Studio is generously offering Sheeted What listeners 20% off, excluding fresh plants and flowers, and not to be stacked with other discounts. Visit them on Instagram at Periander Studio or give them a call at 706-227-0805. And chapter 4, Mara coming in with all the wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
She says, it's amazing what you can learn about people when you're more or less invisible. It's the things they don't want you to see that tell you the most. Back to our people watching.
I think Mara is really a great character in this book because she gives you sort of the perspective of someone who's just watching it all go down. She's observing everything from the outside. And I really thought about my grandmother, and I wish I could ask her at holidays or whatever, were there times
what does she think of this mess?
She's in heaven like, I said, Katie was a character.
It's not just you. I meant the whole family.
Oh, God. Well, don't even get me started on that.
My grandmas are just like this, palm to face.
Face palming in heaven. It's, I wish I could ask her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many times did you just sit back and watch things unfold and enjoy it or be frustrated or... That would be interesting.
Yeah, because Mara's coming at everything, you know, with her life lived, the wisdom, and she had a hard life. She dealt with stuff.
Yeah.
And the wisdom of all that. Because she was an immigrant, and her son definitely seemed like he was on the spectrum and never said anything outright. But
and her whole family living in another country.
Yes.
No family except for her shithead husband.
Well, I don't know if he was that bad. Or if he was that bad, but I think he didn't know how to deal. And so he just turned to the bad instead of trying to work through everything.
Yeah, that was really hard to read, how he treated their son.
Yeah.
That was very difficult to read.
And just Mara's strength through all of that
I know. Didn't you just want to be like, Mara, leave this jerk. Like,
I know, but she was from another generation.
But it killed her
and
son.
She was an immigrant.
Like the whole thing, it was just like,
he died on the plane doing the thing she wanted to give him the most. So if she would have fled with him, it could have ended up that way. And she would, I don't know. It was a tough
We could debate that all day long because it was a
situation.
really bad situation. And it just, I almost feel like had they gotten on that plane the first time, maybe they wouldn't have gone back, and they would have been, because the son was in a better spot at that point.
Yes.
What is his name?
Marcus.
Marcus was in a better place at that time. He was excited. It was a better situation when they go to get on the flight the first time. Marcus is in a much better place. He's not, he's excited. Everything's going well.
Mm-hmm. He's not been as traumatized.
He's not been as traumatized. He's not as, I would imagine that, whatever diagnosis he would get if he had help, he would be better. And, without that, he's worse. He's living in the basement. He's, it's just like it's a bad situation for someone who's struggling. And, so the first time they go to leave, I can't help but think, like, in my head, how you read a book, and this is the fun part of reading a book, you can think of the alternate scenario, like maybe they would have gone down there and she would have felt really loved and supported, and they wouldn't have gone back.
He would have had a different life. Also, to play devil's advocate, do you think the husband knew Marcus shouldn't fly, and that's why he kept the first flight from happening?
I hadn't thought of that.
Maybe he had a whisper.
Maybe.
And he was such a bad communicator, he couldn't express it.
Yeah, he was a terrible communicator.
I don't know. I had that thought. I don't want to give him that credit, but
I didn't think of it that way. But yeah, I mean, could be.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I thought it for a split second.
Okay.
All right. This part was really hard for you. The miscarriage scene.
Yeah.
I've never had a miscarriage. And these scenes, as hard as they were to read and get through, gave me so much insight. And I feel like they were such a learning opportunity for me.
Yes.
And I'm not a sensitive reader, so it doesn't bother me, but it was so valuable and so important.
I read them because I felt like they were valuable and important. The miscarriages are hard because they're really graphic. And you and I were talking about this outside of recording, and I said, I was kind of talking through it because I was like, it just, it seemed gratuitous and did it. And I was like, God, what a shithead response. I'm so, they were probably gratuitous because miscarriages are, and not gratuitous is not the right word. Miscarriages are horrific experiences for women, and how dare I sit on my pedestal and say that I didn't want to read that. Well, it was probably why she wrote it that way. So I had that perspective after I talked through it, because it was hard. I'm a very sensitive reader. I will say that. I'm just, it's hard for me to read that stuff, and it's like, well, maybe that's why you have to read it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you definitely gain knowledge. I feel like I could support my friends better from this point because I had not experienced it. But also, what kind of super creature are women to be having this kind of thing happen to them, having these miscarriages at work?
Yep.
Doing your job. Like, it's insane.
And then just going on with your day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
know.
know.
Our bodies are just mega machines. And then just the strength, like I was just in awe. I wanted to women power, high five her and hug her.
Yes.
And put her in the bed and take care of her.
I know. Didn't you? All of those things when she goes to, she's she's having a miscarriage again. Very, kind of later, it's not an early miscarriage. And she knows it's happening, and she's going through this trauma and drama of realizing Ben has cheated on her, and that everything is just shattered. And she's in all of this at once, and she's just she just keeps going.
And I also think, how when we had our babies, we discovered we were superheroes.
Yeah.
And you feel so much power. I think she eventually got that even through these miscarriages, because that is in the middle of a miscarriage was when she finally drew the line on Ben.
Right.
And she was like, I don't care if you don't want kids. I want kids. I don't care if you're done. I'm not done. And I'm not putting up, so I feel like she gained a lot of the strength you would normally get through a full pregnancy and giving birth through her miscarriages. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I definitely, you could see her being reborn through this miscarriage
Yeah.
as a person who just was done. It seemed like she and Ben were tiptoeing a lot
Yeah.
around all of
Mhm.
this because I can imagine that's probably
Well, because he was cheating on her.
fucker. I can imagine that's probably something that's very relatable for people who are
Yes, I see
experiencing
that.
pregnancy loss and trying so hard to have babies. I can imagine that that's probably part of things, and a very difficult part of things is like, what do we talk, and again, I can't speak from experience. Maybe some of our listeners can enlighten us because,
Mhm.
neither of us have had miscarriages. Some of my best friends have had multiple miscarriages, and it's traumatizing. And you're right. The glory of reading is that you get to read a story and be part of it. I wasn't there when my friend had her miscarriage. And oftentimes I think as women, here's the other strength of women. We don't want our friends to hurt.
Yes. You
And
don't
it's
want
like,
them to
okay,
go
I'm
out
not
of their
going to
way.
describe this to you, moment by moment. It was
Mhm.
horrific. This is when it happened. This is how it felt. But there, in the book, you're like experiencing it through her eyes, and it gives you a better understanding in order to be a more empathetic friend.
Mm-hmm.
So
For sure. I think it was very valuable. It was hard. I'm not denying that.
Yes.
But I think I gained a lot from it. So
Mhm.
I hope it would help other people as well
Mhm.
look into that. But like all things, I think we learned through Blair's experience, or not Blair, with Rebecca's experience here. You go through the hard stuff and you come out stronger.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm clinging to that redemption line there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's bring it up a little bit. I loved the way Whitney's mother, and this is kind of later in the book, Whitney talks about it briefly. Her mother was a single mother, would write down, like literally on a calendar in squares, would like write down what they did every day.
Yeah.
And then the mom gave them to her
That was so cool.
as an adult.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I
Why can't
know.
I be that mom? I don't even have baby books.
Because we're living in a different
I
time.
know, but that's a great concept. I love it.
Can you imagine? I mean, I was telling
I
you
would
this
do it
morning,
for like 2 days.
my kids, we got home at 9:30. My husband's out of town. Got 9:30 from the baseball game, fed them all, bathed them all, got them in bed. It's 10:15, and I need to eat. I need to shower. Like, it's just like,
Sleep,
can you
clean the
imagine? Oh, hang
house.
on. Let me pull out. It's just like,
Yeah.
we're not living the same lives under the same pressures as women did 10, 20, 30, 40. Our pressures are really intense. And I think we need to remember that, like, we have all this great video documentation of our children that
Good point.
those women didn't have. And there's a bunch of pictures of me in a drawer somewhere that I'll never see again.
You'll find them when you're cleaning
But we
my
have-
stuff out.
But my kids can access a cloud when they're
Yeah.
20 and see
Yeah.
photos of them on any given day when they want to. So things have changed. We have the cloud. What do you need a
Yeah.
silly calendar?
Cloud.
I told you this and I meant to bring it in. I had a book called A Line a Day and I did it for 3 years.
That's a good run.
And I meant to get it out because I haven't looked at it in a minute. And I meant to get it out to
Ooh, maybe an episode,
A Line a Day.
or just reading your book.
No.
Okay, so at the end of the book, the very end, there is a crazy dramatic scene, but it is like a perfect example of how life happens. So let me get the character straight. Whitney has just come home from the hospital for a break. The hospital calls, said Xavier's awake. Get
Yeah.
here. She's also literally minutes before this confronted her husband that she might have had something to do with her son's accident.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't
No,
tell
she
the
said,
whole-
"Why didn't you ask me?"
Yeah, so she's
He
letting
knows
him know
she has violent
something.
outbursts.
Yeah.
And she says, "Why didn't you ask me?"
So she's opening that door.
Yeah.
And she's realizing those first physical symptoms of that she's pregnant.
Pregnancy.
And all of this is literally happening in the
Yes.
same moment.
Yes.
And isn't that life?
Isn't that the modern woman?
Yeah. I'm just floored by it. It was this author, Ashley Audrain, I will read anything.
She knocked it out of the park. I remember one time I had a speaking engagement and I was literally 5 minutes from walking into this thing. It was a big one. And I got this call and there was like I had like a major life thing happening, and I had to sit and deal with it. And I was like, when you have a major life thing happen, it's like your whole nervous system reacts, like
a flight or
shaking and everything. And then it's like, got off that call, deep breath, walked in and knocked a speaking engagement out of the park for the next hour and a half, doing my speak and then doing Q&A. And then walking away from that and going back into this other mode. And I think women can probably relate to that story because we have the ability to compartmentalize. It's something that, I'm going to be honest, frustrates me a little about the younger generations. I think they've had a lot of, maybe it's jealousy on my part, a lot of leeway to get to just, react all the time. And I do think, the older generations of women didn't have that. You just had to, like, you can't curl up in a ball. You have to deal. And I don't know. I think it's there's good and bad in it. I think the good is you're resilient. The bad is you're resilient.
No, we've talked about this as a potential episode too, like compartmentalizing your life. There's a lot of value to it, but a lot can go wrong with doing that as well.
That's right.
I think that's definitely something we could get into further.
So Whitney is realizing she's pregnant, opening the door on the fact that she has been verbally at the least, and physically.
Well, and that the son was leaning out the window to watch her having an affair.
Well, screaming
with her.
Not screaming, but saying, Mom, Ben. And he's realizing, and just fall. It's the most horrific. Or wait, sorry. I'm blinking. Did he jump or did he fall?
He fell.
He fell. That's right.
Yeah, because he was looking for them.
Oh, that's right.
They went in the house.
They go in the house. Ben leaves.
Yeah, because they're naked.
Ben leaves, which is the opening. Him leaving and getting home is the opening scene to the book. And he thinks he hears sirens. And then the fall happens.
Yeah.
And then can we talk about that? Am I jumping
Nope,
ahead?
you're done. We're good.
And then the last sentence of the book. It's kind of like you just want. Whitney's she's just a bad person, She's kind of like on the day where you're beating yourself up because you feel like you've been a bad mom, you've yelled at your kids too much, or, you worked too much, or you were too distracted. All the things that I think any modern woman can relate to who is a mother, not doing her best. When you lay in bed and you're like, wow, I barked at my kids and then this and that and the other. And it's like Whitney's all of that times a million.
Yeah.
She is like, she's a bad, like Whitney's a bad person.
Well, listen to what she says. And I identified with this, as bad as Whitney is. She said, the cruelest part of motherhood is that she has made him the way he is, every frustrating part of him.
Yes.
And, I think she doesn't take easily to motherhood. She prefers to be working and to have a lot of her own recreational time. Obviously, we learned that from her business trips.
And by recreational, you mean having sex with random men.
Yes. I was trying to give her the best setup.
And then literally her husband meets her on a business trip and she hops into bed with him 8 seconds after a guy leaves her room. It is so gross.
She's the most difficult to love, I believe. I'm trying to be as nice as I can.
She's awful.
But I really felt that line because my oldest daughter is a lot like me. And a lot of times the things she struggles with are the things that I struggle with and I don't have them figured out. So how am I going to help her? And it's very difficult.
It's my middle to the T. My middle son is me. And it's like, he is my most frustrating kid because he's exactly like me. And I don't know how to deal with myself, let alone a carbon copy.
That's insane. So back to his line.
Yes.
The last line of the book. Do you think that's at all redemption for
100.
Mara and Marcus, though?
Oh.
That's almost like, what if this is like, because Mara and Xavier have a connection. They garden together. He flies the airplanes to her. She has told him about her son. He may be one of the only people in this novel
who knows fully.
Yeah, that picks up on that. And so Marcus and Xavier remind Mara of each other. And so he changes Marcus's story almost. He gets what Mara was not able to give to Marcus.
I didn't think of it that way. Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of blows your mind. I
Yeah.
know. I'm telling you, this novel was just so well thought out. I love it. I
I
think it's
loved that. I
grand.
just loved the way it ended.
Yeah.
It was the
so
perfect
good.
ending.
It was so good.
I feel like you kind of skip over Whitney a little bit. I think Whitney, because she's a big part of this book,
Mm-hmm.
and her need to be away from her children,
Mm-hmm.
because I think part of her realizes she's a bad mom.
Yes.
And when the accident happens, there is a bit of a rebirth for her. She puts her phone on the ground. She turns everything off. She cares mostly about how she looks and how she's perceived.
Do you think she does that for parenting, or do you think she does that because she knows she's hit the edge?
Oh, I don't know. I think there was something in her. I want to believe maybe that there was something in her that opened up, but never fully. Like she wasn't like, I don't know.
Blair describes Whitney at one point in the novel as consumed with work. Balance isn't even a concept Whitney seems to consider. And I would say this character was definitely written that way. Not that I think there can be some merit to that. Some people know what they want and they're only going after that and they're not really worried about the rest. But at like the detriment to the children, they need a mother.
She's a complex character. And I think there is, from being someone who has been work obsessed at parts of my life, I did see a bit of myself in her. Obviously not a lot, but a little, because my kids are the most important thing in my life, but also building is a big part of my identity, a career and something to be proud of, and something that is outside of my home is very, very important to me. But again, when I said in the beginning, she is like such a caricature of that.
Yeah, she's the extreme.
And I think I hated her so much, probably way more than I should. I hated this woman because maybe a small part of me hates that about myself.
I 100% agree.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, I hate that driving ambition that sometimes would keep me working too late at the detriment of missing a game or being late to something or being forgetful about something. That I hate that part of myself.
Yes.
It's a self-loathing.
Yeah, I can completely identify with that.
Yeah.
I don't think you're
so
wrong
I just,
in that.
God, she just, and then the cheating, I'm using the word gratuitous too much. And then her cheating, her just need to fulfill her own needs above everybody else was really disgusting to me. I don't know. She was just, she was a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, the whole book was a little bit of a nightmare, but in a very...
So the end, when Xavier says that to her, you're
what's
just
going
like,
to happen to you?
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely
You're
was
like,
a redemption line for someone. I don't know.
You're like, okay,
exactly
well,
who.
Xavier just, we all walk away from this one feeling a little better about it. So,
well, I just love it. Thank you for reading it with me.
I loved reading
it. Was
it.
a great exploration of just different people and situations.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it so much. And I think any book that can really amplify the lives of women and pull back the curtain and give you something to relate to, whether it's something you love, like the Blair, who's just like the best mom, and you can relate to her too, right? Like the moments of just like goodness of being a mother and the wholesome. Blair is the wholesome mother, in my opinion. And then, and then just the loathing of Whitney. I think I would say as a mom, I related to both of those. And I think that is the yin and the yang of being a woman and being a mother. And it's like you hold both of these things and you really try to do more of the Blair, a lot more, hell of a lot more.
Well, but also Blair was also very insecure. So, you can't take all of everything. You've got to pick and choose and
That's true.
Do your best.
That's true. That was a great read.
I loved it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Who knows what'll be next?
We'll have to do another pick and get something going for the summer.
Ooh, some summer reads. Yes. Well, enjoy it. Let us know if there are any books.
Can we do the fairy porn thing next?
No.
I like how you ignored my text while I was at Barnes & Noble this weekend.
I question marked it because I did not know what you were talking about.
The fairy porn book.
I did not recommend this to you.
You said your friend was reading it, I thought.
Well, I don't know what they are. That's just the genre they like.
I wanted to pick it up.
I'll find out.
I wanted to pick it up at the Barnes & Noble so I could read it at Little League.
They have it. I've bought her books there. Like, she hates all my books, so I'll like go into like the romance.
Well, and I didn't want to go. I had no idea what the title was. I had no. And I was like, do I go to the help desk and be like,
you should have recorded,
sir? I'm looking for the fairy porn.
I'm not joking. He will take you straight there. He knows what it is.
He knows. He's like, yes, ma'am. Aisle 4.
No, not even a blink.
No.
He's like, follow me.
He's like, damn it. It's right here. It's on the help desk.
He just leaves it. This is what you're looking for.
It's under the desk.
Okay. Well, the rest of everyone, let me know what you're reading, what you like to read.
Don't worry, I'll turn her.
We'll pick a next one. Thank you.
Oh, Brandy, thanks.
It.
That was and you did such a good job.
Oh,
us.
Thank you. My favorite thing.
Wonderful.
All right.
All right. We'll see you next one.
Bye, baddies.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and can't wait to share another episode with you next Thursday.
Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To keep up with the latest, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Podcast She Did What. We'll be sharing updates, behind the scenes, and announcements you won't want to miss.
And if there's anything you'd like to share with us, whether it be a personal story or feedback on our episodes, you can leave us a voicemail at 762-499-2201 or head over to our website, shedidwhatpodcast.com. Also, feel free to leave us a review down below. We'd love to know what you think.
She Did What is hosted by us, Brandy Chandler and Katie Jacobs, and produced by Studio D Podcast Production.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next Thursday. And remember, it isn't always easy, but it sure as hell can be entertaining.